Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with my monthly ranking videos of my palettes. So each month I come in and I check with you guys which palettes I've used. I rank them from the least used palette to the most used palette, just so you get an idea of what palettes I'm using for what month out of the year. So this month is actually quite interesting. I have a few different things happening, which is quite interesting to see. And I also have quite a few palettes to talk about. I have 12 palettes. And I'm going to go through them again with you, the least used palette to the top one, talking you through how many times I used them all. For me, I count one use out of eyeshadow as one kind of use. So if I reach for a palette and I reach 5 shades, that's 5 uses. If I reach for a palette and I only reach for 1 shade, that is 1 use. And the reason why I do that is because a lot of times when I'm panning things, I go into a palette and I reach for like only the 1 shade I'm panning, versus like if I'm doing my like Panda palette or my product level up or even my big fat eyeshadow project, I go in and maybe create like whole looks with a palette, and I feel like that should have more value than just using 1 shade, if that makes sense. So that's how I do my rankings. I'm going to jump into the video and start with the bottom palette, but before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So we're going to start off with the least used palette out of the month of July, and that is my Nude Lights Obsessions from Huda Beauty. I only reached for this one time, and the 1 shade that I reached for is that center shade. I needed like a blending out shade, so I decided to go into this one once until I rolled in my Product Level Up palette, where I have one of those shades now, so I started using that one instead. So that is why I only have 1 use on this palette. In place 11, we have this palette right here, which is my Metropolis palette from Natasha Gold. I have actually only used 1 shade, and that shade is missing from this palette because I'm currently panning it in my Panda's eyeshadow, so I have to put it into like a magnetic palette for easier use. So I have used that shade 3 times, so 3 uses in this palette. Unfortunately, I haven't really reached for anything else in here, but 3 uses as a whole, so it comes in place number 11. In spot number 10, we have a palette that was actually my Product Level Up palette for level 4, and I had a couple more uses to go in the beginning of July before I rolled it out, which is why I have a couple uses. And that is my Merry Christmas palette from Odin's Eye, and I have used this one 5 times in the past month. I can't remember what shades I used, but I believe I reached for this shade. I think I hit pan on that one this month, or like in the month of July. I think I also reached for this orange shade. Maybe I think the pink as well. I can't remember, but I know for a fact I reached for those 3 shades, but the rest, like, I don't know if I used them more than once or where those 5 uses come from. It's been a long time. It's been over a month since I used this one last, so that comes in place number 10. For place number 9, we also have an Odin's Eye palette, and that is the Red Dragon palette, which I am working on. Well, I was working on 2 shades, but now I'm working on 1 shade in my Panda's eyeshadows. And those 2 shades is Amber and Jade. So those are the 2 shades that I've used. And in the month of July, I reached for this palette 6 times combined. So between those 2 pans, I have reached for this palette 6 times. In place number 8, we have a palette that I actually have 8 uses on, so it's quite funny, but that is my Deep Sea Treasures palette from Natona. This one has 8 shades. I have used it 8 times, and that is because I have reached for this one, No Plan Left Behind. So I reached for all of the shades once each, and again, that one comes in 8th place. A lot of 8 for this palette, but yeah, I really like this palette. It's full of multichromes. I love Natona's formula in general. It's one of my favorite brands. So I really like using this palette, and I got some nice use of it in that project. It was in my deck of panning, I didn't mention that, but I rolled this one in to reach for No Plan Left Behind, and I did complete that in that project. In place number 7, we have the first palette that is currently, well, yeah, it's just rolled out of my Big Fat Eyeshadow project. So in July, I was working on this palette right here. This one comes in place number 7, and it is the Through My Eyes palette, which is a beautiful, beautiful palette. It looks like this. I did 2 out of the 3 looks in July, which is why this one comes a little bit lower, because some of the numbers are going to come into August rankings. But I have reached for this one 15 times in the past month, so this one again comes in place number 7. For place number 6, we also have a Big Fat Eyeshadow project palette, and that is my Natasha Gold palette. It's going to wash me out a little bit because it's very bright, but this is one of my favorite palettes in my collection. I really do love this one. And in the past month, or in the month of July, this one got 17 uses, so that is where this one stands. I'm really, really happy that I was able to show this palette some love, and I feel like it's starting to look even more used which is always lovely to see, especially when it is one of your favorite palettes. Okay, so we have come to the top 5, and in place number 5 we also have another Big Fat Eyeshadow Project palette, and that is also a Natasha Gold palette. This is the Sunrise palette, which I was also working on this project, and I did 3 exclusive looks with this palette, and I managed to use this one 19 times. It has 15 shades in it, so of course some of these I reached for more than once. But yeah, really happy about that. It is a beautiful color story. I love this one because it creates like a beautiful kind of sunset kind of look. I mean, I'm wearing like a sunset look today, but this one is more like a traditional sunset look. This one is just like a bit richer with these undertones, which is what I love it so much. But yeah, really love this palette, and I'm happy that I was able to show you some love with those 19 uses. For place number 4 is quite interesting because this palette has 20 uses, which is relatively high. But those 20 uses came from one singular shade, and that is my Gold Obsessions palette from Huda Beauty. I was panning one of the shades in here in my rolling product pan, and that is actually gone now. So that is this shade right here. I used this one 20 times, and I was able to finish it up in the month of July. So 20 uses in that pan. It's no longer there anymore, but this palette is going to continue getting some more use because I actually rolled this one here, this shade, in as a replacement. So hopefully, I mean, I'm going to get some good use. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get as high of a usage of that one because it's not as versatile, but I'm hoping that this one is still going to rank relatively high moving forward just because I am panning that shade now as well. In place number 3, we have the last one from my Big Fat Eyeshadow project, and this is my Amrezy palette. This is a really beautiful palette, and I also reached for this one in that project. I reached no pan left behind on it. I had this one in Expand Those Pans, so I reached for this shade Barb 5 times, which obviously adds up a couple uses. And overall, this palette has, I think it's 16 shades, right? Yeah, 16 shades. So that was 16 uses since I used no pan left behind. And the remaining uses came split for a couple shades, but really like this palette. And I'm happy that I was able to show you some love again. And I'm also happy that this one managed to get 22 uses in one singular month. So we have 2 palettes left to go, and this is where it becomes a little bit interesting because every month I sit here with 2 palettes left to go and I say, okay, you can guess which one is top. And it's always this palette right here, which is my Panda palette. It's the Soft Glam palette from Anastasia. This month though, this one comes in second place because I have a palette that is more used than this one, which you might be able to guess which one that is. But this palette has 55 uses on it in the past month, which is lower than normal. I did use updated projects. So if you haven't seen my Panda palette update, check out that before I show you the palette. But this is what it looks like. It is really well loved, and I did get some decent use out of it. But I just slowed down. I think maybe I hit a little bit of a, not a wall, but I feel like I just need a little bit of a slowdown from this palette. And I was really happy to focus on the other palette that I have in the first spot. And I didn't realize how much more I was focusing on that one than this one. But I think I'm going to switch back my focus to this palette now in the month of August, just because I know that I need to get some more use out of this one if I want to get close to finishing it. So this month it is a bit different because this one comes in second place, but I'm really happy that it's still, 55 uses is still really good for one palette. Then for my number 1 palette, we have my current Product Level Up palette, which is the Love Nose palette. This is a palette that I really do love. It is also my Product Level Up level 5 palette, so I need to hit 5 pans and use every single shade 5 times. I am not going to show you what it looks like on the inside because I don't want to spoil anything, because my Product Level Up update will be up in a couple of days. I can't remember exactly how many days are in between, but it's going to be up in the next week, less than a week. But this palette I'm looking at now, it has 20 shades, so that's quite a lot. And obviously, if I have to reach for every single shade 5 times, that is already 100 uses that I need to squeeze into this palette. And that is excluding hitting pan. So if something takes longer, it's going to take, it's going to get way over 100 uses. But 100 uses is quite a lot. So I'm happy because this one stands at 67 uses in the month of July. So I'm already quite far into it. I'm going to say already, because a lot of the shades in here, the ones that I'm focusing the pan on, I've already used way past 5, so I reckon that this one is going to end up in around maybe like 120 uses before I roll it out. But considering I'm at 67 uses now, I am halfway there. It might take less, I don't know, but I'm really happy that this one, I think actually it might take less than that. Actually, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm really happy that I was able to get so much use out of this one. It is a really beautiful palette. I do love this one. I love the undertones in here. And it is one that I'm really gravitating towards right now. and it also is very, very different than my Panda palette, so it meant that I had a little bit more variety, and I think that's why I lent into this palette so much, and kind of neglected my Soft Glam palette for a little bit, but again, I'm going to switch that focus back around in the month of August. So we'll see which one out of these two palettes is going to end up in the top in the month of August. I know for a fact it's going to be one of these two, because these two are my biggest focus, because I'm obviously trying to finish this palette this year, and I'm trying to get 5 uses out of everything and 5 pans in this palette, which, spoiler alert, I haven't done yet, so I still have quite a way to go. I mean, you can kind of tell that from the usage already. So yeah, one of these two are definitely going to be top, but it's just a matter of time to find out which one it is going to be, and you're going to have to wait a full month. So will I actually. I'm going to have to wait a full month until I can find out too. But those are all of the palettes that I have used in the month of July. Let me know if you're surprised by any of the kind of placements and any of the uses. Also, did you expect my Product Level Up palette to beat out my Panda palette this month? I did not, until I tatted everything up. But it's fun. I think it's nice because it meant that I got a little bit of a break from Soft Glam, and I'm gonna recharge and use it quite a bit in the upcoming months. So hopefully, again, that usage is gonna switch over, but we'll see next update. So I'm gonna wrap up the video here. I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye, guys.